Hands are held, alliances are broken, Guys Night 2.0 takes place, a solo journey, backstories are learned, buffs are read, acting classes in session, and in the end, our queen is dethroned and her torch snuffed. It's Survivor 45, episode 11, a recap coming up right now. What up, my fellow Survivor lovers? Welcome to the Survivor Historian, part of the Challenge Historian podcast feed. I am your host and born-again Survivor superfan, Jacob Hollaball, and with me, as he is every week, is our resident Survivor Historian. That is the one and only, the great and powerful Tony Lance. Tony, how are you doing this week?
Not too bad. The decorations are up for the most part. The tree is not decorated, but the tree outside is, so that I consider that a win.
Yeah, one or the other. You know, you got something to send a picture. I got a picture of it earlier. It looks beautiful. You just don't have to send the one inside. If someone wants to know what your Christmas spirit is looking like, your holiday spirit, you just send them that, and you're good in everyone's books.
Exactly.
We are here this evening in December now. It's crazy. It's December 9th. That is wild and crazy. And we are in the... Is there a name for the episode before the penultimate episode, or is it just penultimate and finale and the third to last doesn't have a name? Because this is the third to last episode, right? Episode 11?
I think so. Yeah, because we get six.
Next week gets us to
six
5.
next week is 6 to 5 finale.
Yeah, and they end before the holiday takes place. So we're nearing the end. We are here this evening to discuss episode 11 of Survivor 45 here on a Saturday evening, which I believe this now marks our second Saturday recording, second or third. So it moves up the rankings. It nudges out Sunday and Thursday, I think now. But I think this is now in second place here, maybe tied with Monday. So big time, big things for Saturdays. You know, they're great days. And we're gonna, break down everything from episode 11. Quick programming reminders before we do, along with Survivor 45 every week with Tony and I. We both on each of our podcast feeds have our BFank challenge recaps coming up. I don't know what episode this challenge is on, actually. It was episode 9, I believe, was this week.
8 or 9.
Yeah, whichever one occurred this week, where we lost a lot of queens in reality television this week. Big T going home. So that recap was up Thursday morning. And will continue to be up every Wednesday night, Thursday morning, as long as that season runs, which sounds like until 2025. So we'll be here every single week covering it. And Tony and I will be back the next 2 weeks after this one to continue and round out our coverage of Survivor 45. Anything else on Challenge fandom worth calling out here up front?
No, I think we're just chugging along, trying to
How was
recap
everything last night?
Pardon?
How is it doing the 6 host round 2 last night?
We knocked it down to 4. There was some child illnesses. That's the great thing about having 6
hosts is if someone's busy, you're like, well, one or two of us is busy. We're still probably going to be okay.
We still almost have a full contingent of most other podcasts, so it works out well. But yeah, it was me, Katie, Rick, and Karina last night. So we got the job done. I think we came in a little under 2 hours for the recap, which is pretty good for us. Karina's editing it now, and I think it should be out either tomorrow or Monday, I believe.
Okay, wonderful. So probably not too long after you all are listening to this. So yeah, that's what we got going on as for tonight. Same agenda as always. Going to walk through the episode, talk about all of the major storylines, which there were plenty within this episode. One of the best episodes of the season, I would say, up top. And honestly, in saying that means it's kind of one of the best episodes of the new era in my mind, potentially, at least most interesting as far as some of the dynamics at play. So a lot to talk about. We'll walk through the whole episode. We'll do our awards. And then at the end, instead of power rankings this week, we've replaced that with a new question of similar variety. So definitely make sure to stick around to the end to figure out how we believe, Tony and I believe, that whoever's your favorite of the 6 left, if you're wondering how do they win, who do they have to sit next to be able to win, their highest chance of winning, we're going to answer that question at the end in lieu of power rankings, since we are only down to 6, which is wild and crazy. Yeah, 2 episodes left, 6 folks left by the end of this one, but there's still 7 as of this moment. We've got to walk our way through the episode to get 2-6 and to see Emily go. Very sad. There will be a sad undertones to many portions of this pod. So let's dive in. Survivor 45, episode 11. Here we go. We have to start with the very open of the episode, night 19. That's tough to say, and into day 20, but specifically the nighttime coming back. This season has been, more than any I can remember, has noteworthy things that actually take place immediately after the tribal. We always get that scene, but more or less, I think I said this earlier in the season, that scene's not always really like that necessary or important, but we've had a few that have been this season, and this one was certainly very important. Yeah, it ends up being extremely important, honestly, by the end of the episode. They literally open the episode. The first words we hear are, "Let's pop some champagne," which I was like, that would be hilarious if the producers actually gave them champagne. They're like, "You did it. You got Bruce out. You guys deserve this reward." They have a big celebration that Bruce is not there. And during the celebration, Emily, without really being asked, they like all kind of say, it's amazing he's gone. I can't believe we did it. I can't believe he didn't play his idol. And Emily hikes in with, hey, I could give some context to that, and says, I told him, he said he had this person, and this person on his side. And I told him, you don't have Julie. She's playing you just like she did Kelly. And she like pauses there. It was very dramatically revealed. She was like, I told them that you don't have Julie. And everyone's like, ooh. And then she's like, and then I said that he was playing you just like Kelly. And everyone's like, oh shit, Emily, like you, oh my God. And Julie literally, instead of getting mad, says, that was all you, girl. That's an incredible move. Like, puts and Emily kind of covers her mouth in that moment, and maybe or maybe not realizes, like, maybe I shouldn't have done this. But yeah, she takes the credit right there in front of everyone and kind of starts the episode off by painting the target on her back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with the move, because everybody on the jury could see it, but I think that she really needed to stake the claim on the reason that Bruce walked out with his idol, because otherwise other people are going to be able to co-opt that as part of their resume. So she was definitively saying, like, this was my move. I'm the one who got him to not play his idol, and I'm also the one who got him to put his vote where he did, sort of thing. So I don't, I mean, I think that she realized what she did as well. Like, she realized that it was like an oh shit moment, but at the same time, you needed to find that line and walk it of, yes, I did it, but also not paint a huge target on her back, which Julie was more than willing to help with.
Yeah, I disagree. I think yes, I agree that, like, yes, you do need to like get credit for this in the end. Like, if this is going to be your move and you're going to try to maybe lay a little lower, but I think you have to either one, reveal this info at a later moment, not in front of the entire group in that setting. Like, the next morning, the next day on the beach, it's going to come up again. Something like one of the obvious things to talk about is like, man, I still can't believe last night. That was so crazy, huh? And you tell one person and hope it gets around, or you just fully rely on, if I get to final 3, I will ask Bruce directly, to like plead my case of like, I was responsible for you, Bruce. I think you can confirm, like, I convinced you that Julie was gunning for you and got you to vote for Julie and to think we were all voting for Julie, which some of you actually did. So I totally understand why she would want to, but I think, again, as always, this is with hindsight. Who in the moment I would have probably been like, yeah, this is amazing. Everyone is cheering. I did that. You guys know that I did that. But with the hindsight, it's pretty easy to be like, yeah, this is not the best way to start the episode for you. And then that is followed by a revelation that I think a lot of folks on Twitter, especially, have been waiting for, dying for, theorizing about all season long. And I actually had seen all the theorizing and thought, nah, it's not going to happen. I thought it had been too long. Maybe we've referenced it, maybe we haven't. I think I asked
maybe once or twice.
Once I was like, are we sure that there isn't anything between Dee and Austin more than like being number ones in the game? And there sure as shit is more between Dee and Austin than being number one in the game, because they're holding hands in front of Julie and Drew, which I don't know if Julie and Drew notice, but also Dee and Austin aren't holding hands like on the ground next to each other. They have their elbows propped up and their hands are up in the air. And I'm just like, guys, it's dark out. I know, but like just put it in the sand and they
Yeah.
won't see it's dark out. You're laying flat on the beach, but you're putting your hands in the air. Seemed a little obvious. I feel like Drew and Julie have to have started to pick up on something by now. Certainly by the end of this episode, I think at least Drew is very aware that like there
Yeah.
may be something going on, but they're totally we don't, see like a kiss or anything beyond like the hand holding or whatever, but we don't need to because he references Boston Rob and Amber. We get the full flashback to it. And then she follows that up with not being intimidated at all by the fact that he just said we could be the next Boston Rob and Amber by being like, I did tell my friends, they joked that like you're gonna find your husband out here. So yeah, these two are pretty serious. They're officially a thing, right?
Yeah. They seem to be. I've I've got no qualms about it. I think
I love it.
they're a great fit from what we've seen. Um, I like that it hasn't been a focus, because it has to. Like, I know that they kind of peppered bits in enough for the internet to theorize and enough for people to be like, maybe. But I like that it hasn't been a main focus. And I know that on Fire, they were kind of comparing it to Matt and Franny. And I like that they went this route with it, whereas Matt and Franny was more overt, but I also think that to an extent, Dee and Austin are keeping it more on the down low.
Exactly.
Um, so that it's not something that's at the forefront that everybody's noticing and commenting on, because really people are referring to Drew and Austin as a duo and Dee and Julie as a duo and them as a foursome, but not really like all the different machinations of that four.
hmm Yeah, they're not focusing on it because, like you said, like they're not putting it out there. Whereas with Matt and Franny in lots of showmances in the past,
Yeah.
it's a story amongst the tribe. Like Matt and Franny,
Yeah.
especially, like it was a story. They had everyone else in confessional being like, those two are so cute. Like they're dying to run
Yeah.
off and like kiss for the first time or something. Like everyone knows it. They're clearly head over heels for each other. Like it was a storyline. So they have to then cover it as
Yeah.
such. In this one, they're very deliberately trying to make sure that like again this is the first time I'm guessing this isn't the first time they've like held hands or done made some like a hug has lasted a little bit longer to
Right.
like acknowledge in some slight way like hey we're both like feeling the same thing here whatever and we haven't seen any of it and I think they maybe would have showed us a little bit more if there was anything but yeah they're
Right.
keeping it to themselves which means I think the show did an expert job of yeah give us the little Jeff references in On Fire that like, there's the one or two little things the editors did of like lingering on D, who's kind of lingering looking at Austin when he's performing well in something or vice
Yeah.
versa. And those little things were what the internet ran with. And I think they played it perfectly because it got the internet talking about something and then it comes to fruition. And, that's amazing. So they're together. That obviously will become very important later in the episode, but we'll move for the time being to the final thing from this little section of the show, which is Katurah, who
Yeah.
Bruce is gone. So guess what? We get to actually learn not just something, but like the whole story of Katurah because they can finally be like, oh, we have to move on to a new story. We don't just have Katurah versus Bruce to lean on here, and thank goodness. And she shares her. We've gotten references, especially last week or 2 weeks ago that they did the letters from home, and we got the
Yeah.
reference to I had a really tough time growing up. I'm estranged from my mother, and we didn't have details to fill that in, and now we do. We get the full story of being taken out of school at when she was like 10, fifth grade or whatever to join her family joined a religious cult and she was in it for 3 years up until the point of being chosen as a 13-year-old as the next wife of the cult leader, which thankfully her mother then decided this is enough and we're gonna flee, we're
Yeah.
gonna run from this, and then having to go back into the school system and how difficult that was with just everything she had been through and just what her experience became in high school and choosing then to build this wildly successful life that she has and build this dream life that she has fulfilled in every way. And it was a pretty, I mean, I don't have anything interesting to say other than she's an incredible person and the story is absolutely astounding and incredible.
Yeah.
And I'm thrilled that we finally got to learn more of this. And I'm thrilled that she was on the beach long enough and got at least close enough with a couple people to finally feel comfortable being vulnerable, because sharing this on national television is not easy, you know. I
No.
can't, I don't know that from experience, but I can imagine it's not.
Yeah.
And I'm just really glad that we got to the point where she was comfortable to share and where we got to learn all this about her, because I would have been, you know, if we would have after the fact learned, you know, this incredible story, I would have been a little bummed that we didn't get it and that they just focused all their attention on just, she really doesn't like this guy just really annoys her, you know. So I'm glad we got the Katurah story finally.
Well, yeah, and it's really interesting too because so many people said that she was so singularly focused on Bruce, and I mean, all of her confessionals that they chose to show us were, but that was to tell a story and that was to complete a narrative arc that they wanted to tell as production to make a TV show. But
And that
for
arc
her,
was Bruce's too,
yeah,
is the other thing.
exactly.
Like,
It
she was
wasn't,
a character, they used her to fill in the character arc of this is how everyone is perceiving Bruce, and we're using her as kind of the voice of everyone. She is
yeah.
one of the loudest, or willing to be one of the loudest, but you know, yeah. So continue. Sorry for
No,
interrupting.
exactly. And then to be able to go, it was almost like in the blink of an eye, they made Katurah a completely three-dimensional player versus getting little bits and pieces. And of course, like following her on social media and stuff like that. I'm obviously a fan of hers because she's playing a really good game and she's playing a really like low key game, but still making a lot of moves. However, it's now that we're really getting to see them and to just kind of get that all in one. Like you could have heard a pin drop when we were watching the episode the first time around, and we were watching it with friends over Zoom, and like no one was talking. Everybody was just completely riveted, and you saw like the jaws just drop as she's telling the story and being so vulnerable on national television. And to go through that experience and then to turn that around and decide that she wants to help other people who whoever she can to just help them better themselves is like I think Katurah may be my hero now. I think that's what that's what I gained from the episode is Katurah. Like I already knew Katurah was pretty much a badass, but she's got such an incredible story, and the fact that she let everyone in on it is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Hats off to her. And it made it, the whole time I just wondered, man, if they could have got Bruce off much earlier, like what would,
Yeah,
how what else would we have got to learn about, or what would we have seen, or just different gameplay that she would have played as well, but it's specifically just the edit that she would have maybe gotten a different, they would have had to, you know, go more quickly to her own story versus being the kind of lead character in this other person's story for the sake of filling in this compelling arc of the one guy that, to be fair, like of the guy, you know, the guy that was coming back. So it was like, we, if
yeah,
anyone's gonna like get a kind of tier A storyline across this season, it's the guy that we brought back. Like everyone's going to be interested in what that's going on, and so it all makes sense. Just made me wonder, like, man, I wonder if she would have felt different earlier on, if we would have learned some of this, or if we would have just, her game obviously would have been very different if she wasn't so focused. If Bruce wouldn't have been there as long, but glad he's not now, and glad. Although there, I do have a comment about Bruce later in the tribal because I feel really bad for him.
I feel terrible for Bruce. Like
Yeah.
I genuinely having followed Bruce cuz usually at the start of a season, I'll follow everyone on Instagram or social media or like wherever they happen to be. And I've always enjoyed like Bruce's posts and stuff like that. He was super like he was really self-aware of like only being on the show for one episode and having that storyline of being the guy who got hurt and pulled within the first like day, and he took it with grace and came back again, and like it was this big thing that he's the first returning player of the new era, and then to get the like overbearing at it
Yeah. He just,
sucks.
yeah, he just gotta. a raw deal on the
Yeah.
edit. I mean, not to say that everyone else's feelings weren't valid
Oh no, not at
in
all. Yeah.
everything, but again, it is they pick, they only have time to pick a storyline for most people if they even get a full-fledged kind of arc and storyline, and
Yeah.
they that was available for them to pick for him. But it does it I think seeing everyone's reactions and the friendships he has after the fact outside the game, it speaks much more highly of the type of person he is and
Yeah.
everything. But to just use my little comment from Tribal, I'll just say it now, is there was a clear divide when they flashed to the jury until the very end. He like leaned over and said something near the end, but the
Yeah.
like couple first flashes to the jury, it was Kendra, Kelly, and Caleb like turning and talking to each other and whispering the whole time. And Bruce was like noticeably like half
Yeah.
a seat away and just kind of stoic and like not interacting. And I was like, ooh, it hasn't been a fun 36 hours at Ponderosa. I don't think it's, going well. And I just felt awful, but that's neither here nor there. What is here and there is a journey which is taken, and that's what we'll chat about next. So a boat comes. Jake is very I did get a chance to listen to the Pod Has Spoken, Tyson's podcast on the Ringer reality show. And he made a great point that I kind of picked up on in the episode, but I didn't realize how smart it could be. It doesn't end up mattering, but that
Yeah.
Jake is like, we heard a boat and I made sure I was like the first to the beach just in case. Like, who
Yeah.
knows what this thing says? If there's any power in being the one that's holding the paper in your hand, whatever. But like, I've got nothing here. I'm grasping straws. I got to get down there. I got to be first. And that is like the little smart things that can be done. It doesn't pay off here, but it could have. So yeah, he runs down there. We find out that there is a solo journey, one person, and very specifically, I actually did like that they put right away in there, like,
Hmm.
hey, you guys don't have to figure it out amongst yourselves how to like draw something or other. If more than one of you wants to go, you draw rocks. Here's the rocks. There's one
Yeah.
green one in there. I appreciated that. They draw, everyone participates in the draw. Emily gets the green one and seems to instantly be like, fuck, I did not want, I didn't want this one, but now I have it and I guess I'm gonna go. And now she's going. Do you think everyone should have drawn? And do you think Emily was there a choice to be made? Would it have been weird if she was like, actually, never mind, and like, can you guys all draw again? Or I didn't think she should be drawing or trying to go on this journey, and then it ends up being her.
I think that the realization that the target had been painted coming back from tribal and then having the opportunity for one person to go when you've got 7 people and 4 of them are in a tight alliance and 3 of them are sort of each on an island unto themselves. I think that it makes sense for everybody to draw because nobody, even if you don't want the advantage, there are certain people that you also don't want to get the potential advantage. So I could see Emily wanting to draw because it's one more chance that a Julie or a D does not draw the rock, um, versus I want to draw the rock because I want to go. I think it was more so like I want to make sure that they have the worst chance possible of getting it.
I go the other way of thinking. If the target's now on me and I know it is, I feel it.
Yeah.
A solo journey, all that's isolation. And in my mind, isolation is the opposite of what I want once the target's on me, because isolation just means the target's going to be able to get bigger. And I would be fine with, hey, if D or Julie gets it, that's fantastic, because I could use some time with them not around and to talk to other people, whether the conversations go well or not. I need then, like, maybe Drew or Austin doesn't take it well that I float Julie, but at least I have then time to like, can you guys just like calm down
Yeah.
and not mention that I said that? Like, I get you're not going with that idea. Great, scrap it. I'm not on it, whatever. So I would definitely, and if I was her, I'd almost maybe have been like, I think Jake should go or something, like, because like Jake's the first one to say, I definitely would like to go.
Yeah.
I would have like snapped right away and been like, I think that's a great idea and I think he deserves to go, and or whatever. I don't know that it would have worked. Everyone would be like, no, we're still gonna draw. But Yeah, solo journey just screams isolation. And maybe my opinion is also colored because I don't agree with what she ends up deciding on said journey. So she goes, she's got to do part of the trek through the water, and then down the rocky beach. And she comes to a challenge, the savvy challenge from earlier in the season that all three teams failed at, where
Yep.
it's the little like four circles of steel and a bag is like attached to it with some rope, and you have to basically figure out the puzzle of how to get it unwoven and unattached. And all three teams failed it in group efforts before, and now she's being told you have to do this solo. If you play and you win, you get immunity. If you lose your vote. She ultimately decides not to play and then gets back to the beach and tells the truth about everything that happens, which no one believes, or at least D doesn't believe, and tries to make
Yeah.
everyone else not believe. So my opinion of her not going is probably more shaded by the fact, like, if you're going to go and you're going to risk, hey, I'm on the chopping block and I just went by myself on a journey. In my mind, you're like, if you decided that, you decided knowing I'm doing whatever is there and I'm taking
Right.
whatever risk is there. Uh, Now that puzzle looks really freaking hard, and I don't think I would get it done. I don't think she would get it done. I don't think anyone on their own is getting it done. Um, but yeah, I think it's mine that I just didn't agree with both decisions combined together. What did you think about her not playing and then also telling the truth about not playing and everything that went down?
Yeah. So I look at it from the point of view of if you're if you're going to like draw the rocks and you get the green rock and you're going to go, you have to assume that if it's a solo journey, there is an opportunity to get something. So in that situation, if you already know the targets on you, I think I would side more with this gives me the opportunity to get an advantage because it very easily could have been an advantage in the immunity challenge, or it could have just been like you 1 in 3, like pick a box. And
Yeah,
like it
she
could have
probably
been
doubted that
anything.
it was as good as it was of
Yeah,
you get immunity if you solve this, which is
right.
as good as you can get. And I don't think we've
Pretty
seen
much.
that maybe before
Um
in
like
the modern
once or
era,
twice, but not as often. You're much more likely to get like
because it's typically two
random
or three
shit.
people. We haven't seen too many solo journeys.
Yeah. So I understand why she went, and I understand even if you're going to take the time, like if you're going to be on a solo journey, you're going to isolate. I think Emily's probably the best one to do that because then she can work through all the different groupings of people. And even though it takes her away from the conversations, it also gives her time to sort of prioritize the conversations that she has to have when she goes back. As for actually doing it, I'm also in line with her not doing it because you look at it, you know that 4 people have already failed this. You know that you know the people that failed it. So if you think that like Caleb and Sabaya are two of the like more strategic, like more, I guess, savvy in that sense, they're going to be the ones who are most likely from your tribe to do it because you nominated them. And Jake and Brando were the other two, and she spent time with them. So if you already factor in the fact that she's done a challenge on the island before and didn't do it, was not successful. So she's already got that anxiety of, I already screwed up one of these and I lost my vote. And then you factor in the fact that you know the 4 people that failed this thing before. And she was looking at it, she was eyeing it up, and she's like, you know what? Like, my vote is more important than potential immunity because, like, if she doesn't win immunity at the actual immunity challenge and she doesn't have a vote, then people have no reason to keep her because she can't even help them make a move at that point. So for me, I understand why she didn't do it. I probably wouldn't have done it either in her situation because I know that I'm not doing that puzzle and I'm not going to get it. So I'm basically just saying, here's take my vote. I
Mhm.
don't want it.
She's perceptive enough that I think she made that decision also knowing like, shoot, I probably made the wrong call by
Yeah.
playing and being here in the first place. And so as much as this might not be the best like this sucks that now overall this was probably a misstep for me, but it's maybe a smaller misstep as long as I still have my vote and
Yeah.
don't try this. And I will say also on the Pod Has Spoken, I didn't look it up between listening to that a little bit ago and getting on to record with you, but they had Tyson and Riley didn't have a cast member with them this week, so they had their producer
Okay.
Ashley joining them. And
Yeah.
Ashley, I think it was Ashley, maybe it was Riley, one of the two, had found someone posted on Reddit a like video explaining how to beat this puzzle.
Right.
And she was like, I watched the video like 6 times and I have no fucking idea how how you do this puzzle. It is really hard. It's very intricate and it takes a while.
Yeah.
And they then all confirmed like until a Carson of the world 3D prints this and practices this over and over, no one's gonna get this because it sounds like the solution, like the most straightforward solution, is
Right.
time consuming and difficult, and like one misstep kind of ruins it. And so it just sounds like one of those that maybe the production's leaning on of like, we want this to be like the impossible thing. We would love to have this show
Yeah.
up every other season for 10 seasons and be like the moment someone actually beats this thing to be like this huge deal that so and so finally beat this thing that's been like, stumped 20 people or whatever. And
Right.
I think that's where we're headed. But
Well, and it was on, I think, on Fire that they were talking about it as well, because Jay had asked about reusing it and whether it was just a matter of like, did you not have something else? Did you swap that in for something else? And they had said like they didn't anticipate neither group being able to complete it when they did Sweat versus Savvy.
mm,
So they sort of did it again to see if anyone could do it. um, I would have been interested if Jake did go, because Jake's already tried this thing once. So
and he would have tried anything put in front of him at this point.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it would have been
I
interesting to
think
see if he did it.
Jake and Katurah both try. No one else probably tries. Maybe
Yeah,
Drew. Drew's pretty confident in his
he
mental
is.
acuity.
And I would almost say the Reba 4,
Maybe
if
they'd feel
any.
so comfortable that they would, yeah.
Well, yeah, and they have the majority, so
Yeah.
they could very easily go, and any one person from the Reba 4 that goes, they can still pull a tie.
Yeah. Well, they're, as we find out throughout the rest of the episode, they're not as comfortable as they would have liked to think that first night on the beach, handheld and all. But we'll get to that. First, we have to talk about the immunity challenge. So they play, in my mind, one of the better games that I've ever seen on
Yeah.
Survivor. I absolutely love this. They're attached to a rope. They have to untie rope, an unknown amount of rope, not all of it, but will be needed, but at least a lot of it will be, to then, once it's untied, get down a little obstacle course to where they can stand on their platform, throw balls at some blocks. Once all the blocks are knocked over, you make the what's the proper term for the puzzle that they're making? Like the
Um,
floating word puzzle, like,
yeah,
I
kind
don't
of
even
like
know.
it was. I've not seen one like that before. Um,
It's the hardest puzzle I've ever seen to put together, because when Jeff
yeah,
just explains it and they do the quick flash through of like, this is what you're gonna do, it didn't register to me that like, oh, you have to like hold this thing as you put the pieces together, and like
yeah,
it's gonna be harder than getting the word, and everything else is just physically putting this thing together. But that you have to have enough rope to do it. You don't want to get too much rope and waste time, but then you waste time if you didn't get enough rope and you have to go back. I thought it was brilliant. This is
yeah.
one of my favorite games I've ever seen on the show.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I was like, I would kind of like them just to take this immunity challenge and put it in as a daily in the last section of the challenge this season.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to
Start
see.
stealing more things from
Yeah,
Survivor already. And
not
this is
only
one
that,
of
but
them.
like you've got what, this is day 2021, so they're already depleted as far as like mentally, physically, everything else. If you put a group of people who are at like the top of their game and play this exact challenge, I think it's still just as intense, and I think it's still just as like neck and neck.
And it works so well in the challenge because it's like a mini not so fast is the first
Yeah,
portion of like, you got to get this all untangled, and it's like a variation of that. So
yeah.
yeah, Survivor should use this game again. The challenge should steal this game. Drew gets the win. he beats out Austin, who are really the only two. I think Katurah right at the end gets all of her blocks, but like
Yeah.
right as Drew eventually wins. Drew and Austin are really the only two that get to the blocks and actually get to put it together. Drew gets there much earlier than Austin, but his struggles mightily. And again, because it's really freaking hard
Yeah.
to just hold the thing together as you build it. Austin gets it built, but then basically blacks out when Jeff over and over, and like props to Jeff. I don't know if it's helping or not, or if it would have helped and Austin would have won if someone might have complained like, come on, like Jeff, like that was a little much. But Jeff tells him like 3 or 4 times, like,
Yeah.
you've got to look at both sides. It's got to be correct on both sides. Austin, have you checked both sides? And he just stands there just looking at it and never and says afterwards like, yeah, I don't know, man. I was out of it and it was I was confused and whatever. Drew gets it. Big win for Drew. He's very excited, as he should be. And he then gets to pick, not only is he safe, but he gets the little barbecue, hot dogs, and burgers. He gets to pick 2 people in the end to go with him. He picks first Jake, saying that Jake and him have gone the longest without getting a reward. I did not fact check him. I took him at his word, and that no one else seemed to fact check him on that. And then decides when he get to picks another, hey, boys night 2.0, and picks Austin. What did you think about Drew getting his first win of the season, and then also his decision to go ahead and pick the guys? Is strategically, does that stand out to you in any way?
I like that he referred to himself as the goober of the camp. Just because
You guys
goober is
won't
not.
say it, but I'll say it for you.
Yeah, goober is not used enough in my day to day, so I appreciate that. I will also say Austin just completely blanking on that puzzle reminded me so much of Wendell on Ghost Island. So he completed his puzzle and stood back, but didn't call Jeff over. And then Laurel completed hers, called Probst over, and won.
Huh.
And Wendell was like, "What's the deal?" And Jeff, like, they had that conversation there of like, unless you call me over, I don't know that you're done. Like, I don't know if you're still thinking about it. I don't know what's going on. Like, you realize that like Laurel wins this, right? Like that this is the logical conclusion. But like Wendell just didn't fire in his head
Yeah.
to call Probst over. He like finished the puzzle and then he was like, cool, that's it. Now, the next challenge, he yelled Probst's name like 12 times, really loud and really overtly. But he could have potentially gone home because he didn't say anything. And like that was the same as Austin, just like completely just wasn't registering the both sides thing, which makes that thing a million times harder because it's already hard to just do it on one side and bridge the gap. Um, but as far as like who he took, it makes the most sense because Emily just won the last one and took all the girls. So it makes sense to turn around and do the exact same thing simply because if he takes the guys, he knows that like he's got 2 picks, he can take the 2 guys. If he takes one of the girls, then it looks fishy no matter who you take because you're either excluding one of the 2 women in your alliance, you're bringing Katurah, who isn't really a part of their gameplay at the moment, and they're like, oh, well, is he trying to bring her over? Or he brings Emily, and then it's like, well, Emily just won a challenge, and she just made this big move, and now Drew is cozying up to Emily more so than before. So I think the only way that he doesn't paint a massive target on his back is to do exactly what he did.
Yeah. In my head, I'm just thinking like, has anyone ever in that situation, like as they walked off to a reward or whatever, like signaled back to the other people, like if this in this instance, like he wouldn't have done this because he didn't really want to eliminate her. But like if he's like, Emily, like you're coming, and then he like looked back and like winked at Julie and Dee of like, get the others on board, like Emily out of here, like get the others on board. I got her out of there again. I don't know that anyone would ever do that, but in my head, I was just like thinking about that would be fun if he
That'd
did.
be
You're
awesome.
correct that it's just you don't often get the safe choice to make strategically of like no one's
Yeah.
gonna this is not gonna negatively impact my game at all by who I pick, but like we had this a reward 36 hours ago. All the women got to eat. Jake and I haven't eaten in a while. and like this will be fine. It's half of our
Yeah.
alliance, the whole thing. So yeah, it makes sense. I was happy for Drew. We did not get any Kenny Loggins. They did not pay for any good music over
No.
this hang. It wasn't as much of a bro fest as the one was before. We didn't get any farts, even like not even one
No,
fart,
not a
guys.
one.
One burp, one fart, something. We could have got it, but Drew is safe, which is probably honestly the most interesting thing as far as who could have won.
Yeah.
Because I think things would have been very different if he wouldn't have won. I think he would have played very different. And maybe if he didn't play different, the target would have been pretty firmly on him,
Yeah.
maybe as much as Julie or Emily, or either. So he wins. That's interesting. And then we head back to the beach to get a good old fashioned scramble. So at the beach, everyone early on, everyone not named D, or Julie herself, is pretty on board with the idea of we all painted this picture about Mama J last time. We kind of lied to Bruce about wanting to vote her out, but we were able to do it because we actually do want to vote her out and just
Yeah.
planned on doing it this time. Everyone's in lockstep. Drew is more or less leading, even more than Emily is. Drew is leading in because he knows to really make this happen, we could do it without Austin and D. But like, I at least want to tell Austin because in Drew's mind, he's
Yeah.
like, it's my number one. If I don't tell him, I fracture that relationship. And this is where everything just gets super interesting between the Reba four. It's so, and this is why I thought this episode maybe is the best of the entire modern era as far as the dynamics, because you have the strong, now showman's level, romantic level relationship between Austin and D, while at the same time having this very firm Drew and Austin are best buds, D and Julie are best buds. The four of them, like Drew and Julie, aren't on that level on the outsides of it, but all four of
Yeah.
them are then held together because there's these three different two-person relationships. And so everyone slowly has to do the thing where Drew has to be like, well, I know we don't need him, but like if I don't tell him, then
Yeah.
this hurts me later on. So I have to tell Austin. But then in the back of my mind, I know that Austin's going to be like, well, shit, dude, like I can be okay with this, but like I have to tell D. And then he tells D, knowing D's going to be like, I can't do this or let this happen and not tell Julie. And
Yeah.
everyone knows that those things are going to happen, but they also know like, I want the thing to happen and I have to tell the next closest person to me, even if I'm pretty confident the dominoes that are going to happen. And so it's just such a mess, but such a beautiful mess. And is just the perfect dynamic that it was unbelievable to get to watch play out. And
Yeah.
Austin, especially the conversation between Austin and D is definitely the highlight where
Yeah.
he just, you could see it on his face. Like, I shouldn't be telling her, like, oh man, like, Drew, why'd you even tell me? I shouldn't be telling her. He literally says, I wrote down exactly how he phrased this here. Let's see. There is a strong movement against her, against Emily, against Julie. He's just like so reluctant to say it. And then he won't say Julie again. He then says her again multiple times after that.
Yeah.
What were your feelings on the finally the Reba 4 having some real true cracks and breaks and votes being cast for each other here?
I mean, you knew it was going to happen. We talked about it last week. It kind of has to happen while you have the numbers, because as soon as you lose a couple more people, if you're truly going final four with the Reba 4, you're kind of hooped because everybody's going to step on each other's game because you've all played together. So it's not even a matter, it's a matter of it's really hard to take credit for something that you've done as a quartet. And on top of that, they showed it, just like they didn't comment on it, but they showed earlier Jake and Katurah trying to make fire. And then Katurah references it where she says, like, why can't we just vote somebody out at 4? Why do we have to do all this, Jeff? And then they have another scene where Emily and Julie are working on the fire, and Emily said something like, Julie, you've got this, or something like that. because Julie has once again made the fire. So you're like, okay, cool. So we've referenced the fact that there is Final Four fire making, and then you've got a throwaway shot that's like 10 seconds long of Julie being referenced as being the one who's consistently making fire, and you have Jake and Katurah who are struggling to make fire. So I'm like, okay, cool. So we've probably got a Final Four fire making situation
between Julie versus
building.
one of those two.
Yeah. But I can also see that as like, this is why we need to get Julie out. Because what's happening right now is you're seeing a domino effect of this person's a massive threat. That's why we need to get them out. So it's less of, I want to sit next to the strongest people and plead my case. And it's more of, I want to win. And who do I have to get rid of? And who do I have to make sit on the jury in order to win? So it was inevitable. The breakdown's really interesting because really I wrote it down where it was Austin and D, Austin and Drew, Julie and Drew, Julie and D. Like everybody is so interconnected that it's really Austin and Julie and Drew and D that don't have a true cross section. Everybody else has something to some degree. And really, like Drew and Julie know that out of the four of them, they're sort of 3 and 4. So they're sort of a duo out of necessity, knowing that if they need to, they can team up and take out an Austin or a D.
But they're the ones that are the most at each other's.
Yeah.
That scene we saw a few weeks ago and that we commented on, was that saying them when they, gave each other permission,
Yeah.
like we're all going to be friends after this no matter what, like what we have isn't going to change? Was that them giving each other permission to vote for each other, or them saying, like, acknowledging we're going to have to vote out Austin and D? And it was
Yeah.
hard to tell if they both were on the same page, different page, and which of those two pages they were on in that moment. And in this episode, I think they both kind of take the path, and we see in the next week on, potentially, who knows, those things don't always lead us in the right direction, but that these two are going to be at each other's throats now, because Drew
Yeah.
is 100% the leader of the, like, let's get Julie out right here and now
Oh, totally.
movement, which is interesting, because I think they both should be looking at it a little more like, Austin and D would be maybe more of a target to the two of them, but they all, like you said before, they all are, because if you almost want, either you want to be the only Reba sitting at the end, or you
Yeah.
kind of want 3 Reba sitting at the end.
Yeah.
I would feel like you don't want 2, because then whoever that third person is at least able to just make a stark contrast. If you're the only one, you get to take credit for everything and you win. And
Yeah.
if it's all 3 of you, then let's see who's the best arguer and whatever, but you're all 3, coming in with the same sheet there. And if
Yeah.
there's 2 of you, it becomes, maybe it doesn't matter, because if it's a Drew or Katurah and you're like, they have nothing to stand on, you have to pick between one of us two. But I think that's probably the worst place that they don't want to end up, is 2 of us, not 3 or 1. But they seem to be headed to 2 of them, I feel like, is going to be there. And then the last thing, we'll actually just go into the next segment to talk about, because it ties into the eventual vote. But D obviously tells Julie, she tells her, hey, this is all we got to do. You got to play your idol, vote for Emily. She's out. Julie says, I want to vote for Austin. Julie floats to, we don't know how serious, whether she's just messing with them to mess with them, or she's
Yeah.
actually like, let me take this awkward opportunity to just see what Emily, or is it Jake and Katurah, or Emily and Jake?
Jake and Emily.
Yeah, Jake and Emily, like, see what they say if I just awkwardly sit down with them and be like, so what about Austin, guys? Huh? What about Austin? But she wants Austin. D's like, they head to tribal with D urging her, please, 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 just you write Emily, and Emily's out. And we'll talk more about that here with the tribal council section, because Julie's choice matters, because D doesn't. D votes for Julie. So let's head to tribal council. We'll get back to that point in one moment. The one thing I want to say before we discuss D voting for Julie, which I just can't, it makes zero sense to me.
So I can
truly leaving it up to Julie.
I have a take on that.
Okay, well, hold it for 90 seconds, because I do have to say, Jeff brings up a point. that I believe he and the production crew deserve an applause for from both of us, and I think from a large segment of the Survivor fandom. He references, because it is important in this context of like, hey, there hasn't been like a lot of idols played. There's hasn't been like many advantages at all this whole season. And he's referencing it because, like, hey, probably someone's holding things. I want to see if any of you want to, the way everyone last week was like, Bruce has an idol and he's going to play it. I want to see if that happens again. But it does bring up a good point, and I have to just give them a quick applause. Yes, part of it is because people have continued to fail at the journeys or not participate in them. But there has been very few idols and almost no advantages in this whole game. There was the original idol and beware advantage on everyone's beach. And then there's been what, 3 journeys in total since the merge, basically.
Think so, yeah.
But we've had Emily not do it, 3 people fail, and then the 3 people take the amulets over playing for something or taking the sandwiches. So
Austin got
uh
his vote back though, so 2 of them failed, and Austin got his back.
yes. So overall though, compared to the first 4 seasons of the modern era, there has been I don't know what the percentage drop off is, but it's steep as far as advantages and disadvantages. I am a big fan of that. I applaud that. And just Jeff calling it out made me realize, like, oh yeah, that's one of the many reasons why I'm enjoying this season so much, is because there was back to what I would call kind of a normal level of, there's always an idol or 2 floating in the game. And if one gets used, we'll get one back in. We'll offer an advantage here or there, but it's not like every episode you're like, wait a minute, what 3 people have idols? What 4 advantages are out there? What's going on? The whole thing. So I loved it. And I just wanted to quickly shout out Jeff in production because I appreciate this.
So I will concur that there haven't been a lot. However, been a lot more like lose your votes. And I would say that this episode in particular is absolute proof that they should just like leave it the fuck alone and let people play, because the only thing that came into play this episode was a hidden immunity idol and an immunity that was won at a challenge. There was no other game mechanic. Like, Emily didn't take part in the journey thing, so she didn't lose her vote. Everybody had access to their vote. It was a blindside mostly of Emily. On some level, she saw it coming, but nobody knew that Julie had the hidden immunity idol other than Austin and Drew and Dee, but nobody knew that she was going to play it other than really Dee. So they didn't like nothing. There was nothing. There was no twists, like nothing at all. It was old school Survivor. That's, I think, why I like this episode as much as I do, is it was just flat out old school hidden immunity idol, nothing else. And I'm for it.
Yeah, it's not always going to work out like
No.
this, but it's not manufactured the way, I think they got to a point where they're like, this only works in the way that it did in this episode, maybe 1 out of 3 times that like an advantage ends up getting played in a dramatic way that's really compelling and interesting and authentic. And so they got to the point of like, let's engineer and kind of manufacture every episode, so the blind side, because there was this advantage in this and no one knew or whatever. And this is the payoff is much greater when a more old school method like this of, these idols were both introduced long ago.
Yeah.
And then multiple episodes ago, we kind of, in a passing moment, we find out that Julie has it. We don't even really know until this episode she still has it and that she's not going to give it back. And then she gets to play it. And it leads to this huge moment where the kind of front runner and probable fan favorite at this point, Emily, goes home because of it. So yeah, they nailed it. And I hope they realize that even if it doesn't work out perfectly like this for them in the future, that setting up these types of opportunities are, over the course of time, much more beneficial and have greater payoffs when they do pay off, and does the, let's just pump a bunch of stuff in here to make sure something happens every episode. So that's that. Back then to, let's get your take now then on Dee urges Julie to vote for Emily, not Austin, knows that Julie is definitely thinking about voting for Austin. And I would assume knows that everyone at camp is pretty obviously, Dee and Julie are tight. It's not like she's hiding anything. I don't think she's gaining anything by, she tells Julie back at camp, like, I'm going to vote for you and we're going to get really mad at each other afterwards, like tries to come up with this idea. And it's like, no one no one's coming back to camp and being like, wow, D and Julie are on the outs. Like, no one's believing that. I have no idea why D did not also vote for Emily in case Julie voted for Austin or anyone else, D herself. You say you have a reason. I would
Yeah.
love to hear it.
So Austin did tell Drew that he told D, but D didn't tell Austin that she told Julie. And he had said basically like she can't know because she can't play her idol. If she plays her idol, then it's bad for us, right? So D, like to your point where she said like I'm going to vote for you. You need to play your idol and we'll be pissed at each other when we come back because that does even because perception is reality, as I've said many times, and as they say on Why Blank Lost. But if they come back, and she did play it well at Tribal, D did, of when the idol came out, D looked genuinely shocked. But Austin also told Drew, if she plays something, I'll play something. So he very easily could have said the same thing to D of if she does play it, then I'll just play mine to be safe, sort of thing. Because what could have happened, and that could have been why D was shocked, was that Julie played her idol and then Austin didn't play anything. Because Austin has that idol until final 6. And I'm interested to know when Drew's doesn't work anymore, his knowledge without power.
I think it might have
Because
passed.
I don't know, because there hasn't been anything said about it.
I
And I
thought
would be
his was maybe final 7.
I wasn't sure if it was
No,
7 or
continue.
6.
I'll look up if challenge fandom, Survivor fandom usually has a pretty good.
Yeah, because if it's 6, then it could be that Austin and Drew just like idle and walk out of final 6 and both end up in final 5.
Yeah, they don't have Drew listed as having an advantage anymore.
Okay.
So I wonder if he no longer has said advantage. I think I for some reason in my head I had it that it ran out at 7.
Yeah.
But I don't know for sure.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
nothing on here. Yeah, I'm gonna go though with he doesn't. If we haven't heard about it, and he would have mentioned it in a confessional, I feel like. So I feel like that doesn't exist anymore.
Which makes final 6 a bit more interesting because if it was like I said, like if it was that Austin has his idol and Drew has a knowledge without power, then they could sit there and then he could just leave and then Austin could play his idol and
It
they could
has
make sure that they're
expired.
have. Okay, cool.
It's the safety without power,
That one, yeah.
and it was only good until the final 10.
Oh geez, that's been gone
So
for
he
a
has not
while
had
then.
it for a while, which is why we haven't heard about it.
Yeah, fair enough.
So yeah, but I mean, you're correct. That's an astute observation, and I was not thinking about it. So you're correct that yes, this is Dee's way of hiding that she told Julie anything. But again, I don't think no one's gonna believe it is my like thing. So like it's fine that you did that, but she did play it, and everyone sees the chain of communication here and is gonna be like, well, we think we did a pretty good job, and like, yeah, maybe she knew anyways and would have played, but like, I don't know. I feel like she's gonna get accused no matter what, and it's
I
gonna come
think
out.
I think it would have worked worse. I think it works. This is best case scenario that Jeff read every single vote because then they know that D voted for Julie.
Yeah.
If it was he read every single vote and there were 2 votes for Emily, then you're like, okay, well, D is now on an island unto herself and she is completely screwed. But where he read every single vote and every single vote other than Julie said Julie, I think that does help if they actually play it up. They could just not. Like it could be something that does not happen next episode and they come back and they're like, "Hey, we did it." Because really it's Dee's move. Julie like did it, but it was Dee's idea
Yeah,
and
Dee
like
saved
Dee's
Julie.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
D chose for Emily to go home instead of Julie. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all D's. D has made all the moves for Reba.
Yes.
If the jury was able to watch our edit of the show, they would all 100% right now, I think, be like, well, D wins. She's literally the only one left with anything to truly
Yeah.
take credit for. She could take credit for everything Reba has done, as Reba has done everything that has happened. So she's in the driver's seat, but I mean, I like both of them, and if I wasn't rooting for Emily to win of this 7, there's a part of me that might be rooting for Austin to win, but
Yeah.
it would have been something else if Julie would have done it and
And sent
would have sent Austin home.
with an idol in
And
his pocket.
I mean, I don't think it was this was the right move for her to make. I think if she
Yeah.
does that, there is zero chance that Julie doesn't go home at the next time she isn't immune, no matter what, because overtakes D and then some in the like
Yeah.
everyone loves you and you just did that, so like she's winning, but she definitely thought about it, and I was a little, I didn't know what was going to happen. I definitely
No.
was not confident that last vote was for sure for Emily, except actually I might have been. I did say in my notes by the end of the tribal council, and this is, I know the editing team is unbelievable, so who's me to nitpick at some little thing, but I literally put in my notes for the tribal council on, we were many minutes in and many answers in, and I felt like we were on the verge of like saying it's time to vote, and I wrote Austin has not spoken yet. Austin hasn't been called
Yeah.
on. And I was like, if this dude's gonna get blind, like if she votes for him, he would have got to speak. And he speaks one time, and right after that, he, without being asked, just like butts in and says something.
Yeah.
And that's the only quick little time he speaks the whole time. And so I was a little bit like onto the edit of like, I feel pretty good it's Emily, but I'm still up in the air because Julia was a pretty convincing otherwise. But Emily goes home, which is really sad. We
Very
thought,
sad.
yeah, I mean, I've been very bullish, obviously, declaring that she was going to win for like 6 weeks in a row now. Um, and yeah, she got a little too strong, a little too quickly,
Hmm.
and takes the bullet. And it really, it's she lost to love. It's Austin had to tell D, and D had to
Yep.
tell Julie, and that's what cost Emily in the end. Because I think if Austin has the courage to keep it to himself,
Oh yeah.
maybe
Julie goes
Julie
home.
still thinks about it. Maybe she still plays it, but I would bet it's 50-50. Because one other interesting note, Austin, don't give someone an idol and then not immediately ask for it back immediately after the tribal. If you're going to give it to them, there is there is no world where they can keep it if when you
Yeah.
get back to the beach, you pull them to the side and you immediately ask for it back. But if you're going to give one away and then just let them keep it and you have two, you keep the one that lasts longer. Why does Austin sitting here with the one that expires at 6 instead of 5, and he gave the one that expires at 5, the slightly more powerful one, away? What are you doing, dude?
I thought that the only thing that I could figure out is either he like messed it up and put the one in, and then after the fact was like, wait a minute,
Yeah, he
this one's
probably
good
wasn't
until
thinking it through.
6.
He was probably like, I
No.
have 2 idols, just give you one, thinking I'm going to get it back. And then slowly but surely, he's like, wait, I didn't ask for it back. Now she has it. Now it's awkward. Now I guess it's just hers.
Or maybe the amulet is he has to play it. Like it could be the amulet's not
Yeah, that might not be
transferable.
transferable. Yeah.
And that was
Probably
the
right.
only other thing that I could figure. Now, I'd have no reason to think that that's the case, but that's the only thing that I can figure as to why he would have given her the stronger one and kept the weaker one for himself. Because initially last week, we had said, if Austin makes it through this, then he can idol himself to Final Four. But he can't.
No, but he can to Final 5, and
Yep.
that's going to be the most interesting thing looking ahead to next week. Is he's got that idol. He and D are definitely going to be tip of the tongue for everyone around there. And here's the hoping that we get a very exciting, which of us do I play this for? And maybe D batting her eyes at like, you could play it for me if you wanted to. And I mean, maybe we'd get a full villain moment of like D knowing that Austin's going to get voted out, tricking him into giving it to her. Who knows? But it's definitely in play. Emily is not in play. She went home, and God bless her. One of the best to come around in a long time.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the most fun arcs and characters and cast members. And here's the hope. And she has a big old glass of wine at Ponderosa waiting for her. And I cannot wait to see this jury is coming around to being one of my favorite juries I've ever seen. Like the jury is just
Yeah.
wonderful. Love this jury so much. Look forward to their questions. But for now, let's hand out some hardware and chat some awards. All right, starting off with quote of the week. I will go first with my nominee because while there were a few deserving, I only have one. And I know it's definitely on your list because we always have Jake on and or winning this award. But Jake, as an actor, I felt like the past couple votes have been an extra. I've been playing the tree. I've been doing a very good job of playing the tree, but to be honest with you, I'm sick of playing a goddamn tree. So this vote, I'm being more of a supporting role, which is, looking on the bright side as ever. Certainly, he is playing a supporting role in this vote, and I just loved everything about that. I loved learning that he teaches community theater,
Yep.
and yeah, Jake's great. Do you have any quotes to rival Jake's playing a tree quote?
I mean, no, because I also wrote that down because it was amazing and a perfect analogy of how his game has been going. I did appreciate that when they got back from the feast and Drew laid down, I didn't catch it the first time. I caught it on the rewatch. When he laid down and like curled up with his immunity idol, Jake again said quite loudly, "Fetal position commence," um, which was incredible and overlooked. Like I totally did not hear it the first time that I watched it.
I would have had to go back to I heard someone say something and I assumed it was funny because of what Drew was doing and that they put it in there, but I didn't pick up on what was said. So yes, that's very good.
So there's that, and then none of these rival the one that you said. Like that one wins, but there was also man up and face me when there's three left of Julie, and just like almost like her full villain moment has come to fruition, followed by Jake again of there goes a badass right there as Emily walked out.
Yeah. Okay, so can I admit something about that moment with Jake?
Yep.
So he says, there goes a badass right there. There goes a badass. And obviously Jake has his accent. Yep. And specifically the second time, it sounded with his accent like he said, there goes a badass right there. There goes a fat ass. In like, not in like a derogatory, in like a like sexual way or, whatever. Yeah. But it sounded like he said PHAT, like there goes a fat ass, like whatever with his accent. And I just was like, obviously you did say that. And I'm a child for even thinking it, but it was kind of funny. I got a good thing it. But Jake always wanted to react to a vote out no matter what. Always going to
absolutely
give probably an inappropriate over the top reaction that everyone else is going to be like, let's just tone down. You don't need to share your feelings at this moment.
You don't have the talking stick, Jake.
Yeah.
Although like his loud whoa is quite possibly one of my top 5 favorite quotes from any season of Survivor ever.
Well, we will probably do a season recap where we hand out the quote of the season. So that'll strong contender to say that.
I already have my quote for next week because it was in the next time on.
Oh, wow.
Well, yeah, it was again with Jake. I'm not out of this game. I'm a wolf in goat's clothing.
Yeah, that the upset the apple cart thing is a real saying.
Yes, it is.
That Tyson and crew on their pod like weren't aware of, and I was like, I thought it was actually pretty.
I thought it was very common.
Yeah, I thought it was very common, and I thought again the accent is thick at sometimes, and so both Katurah I think didn't know the saying, but also was like, "What are you saying, apricot, whatever?" But yeah, it's a very common saying. That one he gets wrong next week. That's not the right phraseology of the saying he's going for there. Anyway,
well, it's because he's considered a goat in the game to like be drugged to the end and not have. Yeah,
that's smart. So moment of the episode. I've got a couple nominees here. I think a few things that we haven't actually talked about. definitely the pop champagne moment at the beginning was just kind of, stands out. I don't know that
Yep.
I've seen people celebrate like that after someone gets voted out. Obviously, Katurah's moment and the culmination of her story, getting to say she built her fantasy, that stands out for me. And then I had um we didn't mention earlier during Guys Day 2.0, they have the spa day for the women, and it's just two of them and two of them both knowing they want to vote for each other, awkwardly reading the buffs, reading
Yes.
where the buffs were made. So now we know where the buffs were made, and that was hilarious. And then again, the Austin D that I read earlier, there's a strong movement against her, against Emily, against Julie. That was really great. And then the final one, Drew always, and of course, finally doesn't have anything to say at tribal council, and Jeff literally sits back and is like, "Excuse me, sir, Drew, you're Drew. That's it. That's all you got for us." And Drew's like, "Well, if you're gonna ask, I got a great reference to some person connected to Napoleon. You want to hear about him? Let me regale you." And Drew regales us again. So those were all the moments that stood out to me.
Kelly's reaction to that moment was what made that moment.
Everyone should be reacting more by this point because it's ridiculous and hilarious, and I love every bit of it.
Yeah. So I mean, Katurah getting to tell her full story is my favorite moment of the episode. But also Julie, there's two moments with Julie. One is three. So Julie saying like being able to kind of push all of the target onto Emily at like post tribal. Also, when she was sitting there with Jake and Emily, and she's just like, if I don't hear back from you from the end by the end of the day, I'm going rogue. And I was just like the like confidence and
That was
just
badass.
it was total badass. And then when she when she was talking to Dee about Austin when they were in like the wood, they were in the jungle, and she was just like, without Austin, Drew's weak. He said, she's like, yeah, so we take him out. And then Dee realized that she had sort of proved Julie's point and then kept trying to backtrack and then said that she would like that Austin was her number one. And now in confessional, she referred to having two number ones, which that's not how math works, but I understand in theory.
Yeah, number
But that
11's not a
moment,
strong position to hold someone in.
yeah. So it was interesting to see Julie's reaction to that because she didn't react until the confessional. She just kept right on going as if that was common knowledge in the moment. And then as soon as the confessional hit, she's like, I don't know about that.
Yeah. Julie, definitely incredible episode. And if it wasn't for being uh so in love with getting to learn finally about Katurah, then I think Julie could have taken the moment of the episode, but I'm with
Yeah.
you. I am gonna give it to Katurah's story. Then best and worst gameplay. For worst, I've just got Emily at the beginning of the episode because it's too hard to parse. The decisions at the end of the episode are, again, as referenced, very, very difficult and tricky, and both sides of it kind of make sense, even if they end up being costly for some, or in the future are going to be very costly. So I've got to give worse to Emily's not waiting to share the information and just how she went about in the celebration, sharing that, like, I'm going to take credit for that while also letting Julie know that I was willing to throw her under if things went wrong. It was going to be you. That didn't work out so well. And as far as best move, I will say Julie for having the strong enough relationship to overcome a showmance to where D was still like,
Yeah.
again, math doesn't work, but you are actually tied in my mind with Austin, who I have in a romantic relationship with now. So that testament to the long term of building that relationship, to be told for sure, play your idol. And then as much as the excitement level would have been 12 out of 10 if she took Austin out in that moment, I do think it was the correct move for her to make,
Yes.
to say, I can find a way to win this battle of the four of us, and I'm willing to have that battle next week and get the one person, because I think they all have to look at Jake and Katurah and be like, those two aren't beating us.
Yeah.
Emily would beat some of us, maybe all of us, depending how things go as we sift out who of the four of us gets to sit there. I don't think those two could. So I think she makes the right decision. Still a very exciting decision. Just a 10 out of 10 regular amazing decision versus the 12 out of 10 that getting Austin out would have been. But I have to give her the best move for controlling, having a lot of fun with the information she has, as you just referenced all the amazing moments, but ultimately probably making the best decision for her to stay on the path to winning $1 million at the end.
Yeah. So I was able to separate all the stuff at the end and gave my worst move to Austin telling D, because
Probably shouldn't have done that.
it's the first domino in that whole situation, because everybody was on board. You had all the different parts of the remaining people on board that needed to be on board. Nothing else needed to be done. And I understand why he did it. Like, absolutely. In addition to her and him being romantically linked, she's also like the strongest alliance that he has next to Drew. So he's going to tell D. That's a foregone conclusion. But he would have had the best move of the night if he didn't.
Yeah.
So it only makes sense that he has the worst move of the night for telling her.
I think this was the first step of him. I think what he might be in his real mind is, if I let this happen, then next up is it's me, D, and Drew, and I'm in the middle, and they're both telling me to vote the other one out. And I have to then make that decision, which is even harder. Or maybe somewhere in the back of his mind, because I do not, we'll talk about it in a moment, I don't think Austin's going to win now. And I think if Julie goes home right here, I think Austin is going to win. And now I don't think he's going to win. And I think maybe in his mind, this was the beginning of him kind of mentally deciding, to bring it back to his own reference, that he's willing to be the Rob to Amber, and he doesn't, and he's kind of okay with her winning, and that this was more helpful for D than it was to him, and was going to help him avoid another difficult situation, an even more difficult situation of, well, shit, now I have now I have Emily over here with her ideas, but I also have Drew and D, both like Drew saying D, D saying Drew, and me being in the middle, like, this is impossible. What did I get myself into? So I think this was his first step in avoiding that. Episode MVP, Tony. This is a tough one. This is an incredibly tough one. Obviously, Austin has a case, D has a case, Julie has a case. Emily probably doesn't, but she's going home. And so it's just tough not to say she maybe doesn't have a case. At least we'll get on the ballot. As great as, getting the backstory of Katurah was, she wasn't very prevalent the rest of the episode, so she's probably out. It's probably between Julie, D, and Austin for me. And maybe Austin and D cancel each other. I think I might have to give it to Julie. You did a nice recap of the couple different moments once she had the info. She really did wield it like an absolute badass, and I really enjoyed every minute of her being just on the edge of chaotic and paranoid, but like without actually being those things, kind of faking those things a touch to see what reaction she would get. I think I might have to go with Julie.
I just realized I didn't give best move, but it's the same best move as yours, which is Julie getting Emily out. As far as MVP, it has to be Julie, because if you look, I know I've referenced our own podcast a bunch this episode, but if you look at last week's episode, the person in like one of the lowest spots on the power ranking just took out the person in the top spot on the power ranking. So I can't not give her the MVP. Like, she took that information. She had the opportunity to make really splashy moves, but instead, like, everybody on the beach has said, D, Julie, and Emily are the big threats in the game. And if you want a chance at winning, none of the three of them can be sitting at the end. And I totally agree with that. And that was Julie's opportunity, because she wasn't going to take out D in that moment. The only other thing that she could have done to infinitely help her game was ditch Emily.
Yeah. And so I think she nailed the entertainment factor and the game factor. Obviously, she was the big winner of the episode. So clear-cut MVP for Julie. And now we head to what would normally be power rankings and predictions, but instead we're going to ask one question for each cast member left. So let's head to the final segment. So now that we only have 6 people left and we've said goodbye to Emily, instead of power rankings, we are going to do a quick final question here, which is who can blank sit by at the final 3 and win? So we're going to go through each of the 6 people very quickly here and say who we would assume is their best chance at winning. Who do they need to be sitting by? For some of these people, it will be for their best chance because they probably have a good chance to with a bunch of different people. But for a few of them, it'll be is there a possibility for them to win? And we're gonna kind of go in order of my personal order of would be my power rankings anyways right now. So
Mhm.
we'll start with D. Who does D not need to be sitting by, or unless you disagree that there is a specific 3 she needs to be sitting by? Because in my mind, if she's there, she's going to win, I think, right now. But who is she sitting by that gives her the best chances of winning?
So for D, I just simply put that the best chance that she has is to not be sitting next to Julie. I
I
think
think Julie's the only one
otherwise,
that could cancel out any of her stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, I think she can easily. Austin, Drew for sure. Austin, she can pretty easily be like, nah, honey, too bad. Remember when like lean over, be like, remember when you wanted to be Boston Robin Amber? Well, like, this is your chance. Like, yeah, I did all those things. Yeah, I think she's gonna I think Julie is the only person that could beat D at the end, and it would be up to what would happen between now and them both getting there and what they did at Tribal. So I will agree. And then Julie is next on my list. I think if she's sitting next to anyone other than D, she will win.
yeah,
Similar answer to that I would have actually said for D, and that I'm probably about to say for Austin and Drew. If Julie's sitting next to Katurah and Jake, is the highest probability slam dunk, possibly unanimous vote. Barring some crazy shit going down the next 2 weeks that gets earns one of those two a vote. What say you?
I think that Jake and Katurah have the best chance against Drew, but I also think that they need to be there together. Um, I mean, honestly, if you have Julie, Katurah, and Jake there, you've got 3 lawyers as your final 3, and I'll be really interested to see how that plays out. Um, I think that Jake and Katurah are able to talk their way into a couple of votes to explain why they're still there. So I think that no matter what, they would be able to snag at least 1 or 2 votes. But their best chance, and I know I'm jumping around, but their best chance would be to sit next to Drew, because I think if either Austin, Julie, or D are next to them, it's a much harder battle. Whereas they can discount Drew's moves as Austin's or D's or Julie's rather than his own.
Or
And
Emily's?
that gives the 2 of them agency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, this was silly to try to do it one by one when the answer's kind of the same or in
Yeah.
groupings. Because I basically agree with everything you said. Um, I honestly don't know that Jake and Katurah. I don't know if Jake can get any votes without doing something dramatic in the next 2 episodes. Maybe Katurah can because I think she did have much stronger relationships than maybe we were given witness to some people on the jury that might just not want to vote for the Reba person or whatnot.
Right.
Um, but I find it hard to believe either of them isn't going to end up in a Owen as the most recent example situation of the best they can say is, I survived and the game's called Survivor. And everyone's like, well, yeah, but that's kind of not the game we really play anymore. We don't really give out votes to people just because we like them and they're here. Um, I think, yeah, I don't want to say there's zero way they could win because maybe, yes, if it was those two and Drew, I think Katurah could talk her way into it, and maybe even Jake could. But it's going to be tough, and it would require, I think, even them again. Though they are lawyers, so this could happen. They would have to really like bring Drew down. Like
Yeah.
they would have to continually. Drew would have to be like, say, me and my alliance did X, and they would have to be like, well, person that he just referenced on the jury, can you confirm like
Yeah.
this from my point of view? Drew actually was just voting along with that, same as we did on that vote. And it was
Yeah.
actually D, or it was actually Austin, or it was actually Emily. So yeah, I'm right there with you. For Katurah, Jake, they got to be sitting there together. And with Drew, maybe Austin. I don't know. Maybe they could
It
bring
could
Austin
be.
down.
Like
But he won.
Austin's
He won enough immunities, and he had idols and stuff, so he can. He's got that to cling to that they even don't have. So
but I mean he has the hardware in that he found the idol, but Julie and Dee found the idol. Like really, they gave them the final clue.
yeah,
And so they could talk him out of that win. He got the amulet with Jay and Kelly, and like Kelly even acknowledges that it was Emily's move to get her out, not Austin's.
yeah.
So I would be very interesting. I'm interested to see what kind of a shot Austin actually has, but I also think now that we're talking about it, Jake and Katurah will probably be the two people who will most effectively use the jury.
Hmm. Yeah. And I'm also just thinking, uh the only thing I'm just thinking about is as much as I try to come up with ways that Katurah or Jake could win, the thing is, if they sat there with only Drew or only Austin or just one of the four Reba,
Yeah,
that would mean that there's three guaranteed votes of the Rebas that have now been eliminated over on that
depends how they went
jury.
out.
Um, with the exception of Drew is the one that I could see, like I could see Julie being like, I'm okay not voting for Drew.
Yeah,
I got to there. I got there. We had that conversation that one time, but I got there. So yeah, they need to be sitting there. Drew weirdly needs to be sitting next to Austin, I feel like, in either Jake or Katurah.
yeah,
I feel like it actually helps him, maybe weirdly, to have Austin there to be able to say, we did a lot of this stuff together, but he was kind of the lapdog of D, and I was actually like the one between
doing
the two of
stuff.
us, like offering some ideas and things like that. And maybe being able to get Emily to be like, yeah, I was working with the two of them, but like Drew was the one like pitching stuff. Austin was just kind of like, I've got idols whenever we need them.
Yeah,
But yeah, in summary, D or Julie's probably going to win,
I think
unless they're
so.
only the two next two out. And you did reference earlier, I had picked up on both moments where they referenced the fire making. I hadn't thought at all of like maybe they would take it out, but yeah, I don't think they're going to take it out. So, who wins immunity next week? Will D betray Austin, or Austin give himself up for D? And who goes home? Any predictions that you would like to make on those three levels, Tony?
I don't think that anyone that's left wants to let Julie get to the end. Now that she's made that move, after getting out Emily, who was the biggest threat, Julie just made herself the biggest threat by getting out Emily.
Mhm.
So if she wins immunity, obviously that throws a wrench in the plan, but I don't see a way forward for Julie really, because like she's Dee's gonna have a way harder time with Julie than if she sits next to Drew and Austin. So I think that I think it's Julie, but yeah, I think it's Julie. I'm gonna say it. I think Julie's going.
It's a complete toss up between
Yeah,
Julie, D, Austin, and Drew, like all four of
yeah,
them, because again, I think everyone will slowly but surely, as much as Julie might have gained power, will quickly realize, as we on the outside are able to from the edit, D got Emily out.
yeah,
That was her. She convinced her. She got the information she needed from her one ally, and she convinced her other ally to do what she wanted and not what that person wanted with that
yeah.
vote. So this was on D. So yeah, I think yeah, all of them are up in the air. I really would love to see Drew win immunity again, as far as the most interesting,
Yes,
because I don't want, it's the least interesting to me if the fracture leads to like Drew is the one that goes home next week,
yeah,
and we have to prolong D and Austin and D and Julie confronting this a little more. I think because I think Drew separated himself a little this episode. So I think it's most interesting
definitely.
if he wins again and makes it like I'm not available and you guys all want Katurah and Jake with you there. So like it's the three of you. We've got to decide. And that really puts Austin in the grinder of like, we've got one idol for the two of us. We need this to be Julie. Everyone's giving us mixed messages. So I think Austin's going to go home next week. I think he's going to play his idol for D, and I think it's going to backfire, and it's going to be an amazing television moment. That's what I'm hoping for, predicting, and we'll see if it comes to fruition. But this season's been awesome. It continues to be awesome, and I'm very excited for. Uh, like all reality competition shows, it usually tapers off a little in the end for me. Things seem pretty as good a job as the editors can do. It seems you kind of
Yeah.
have a feeling, and maybe you've lost most of the interesting people, but this one is crescendoing nicely into a true climax here for the penultimate in the finale, and can't wait to watch it. Can't wait to pod about it. We will be back next week and the following, as always, sometime between Thursday and Monday. No no promises other than that we promise to be here again, and that I won't get too busy, and nothing will come between us potting. So any closing thoughts before we head out, Tony?
I think I can definitively say that this is my favorite season of the new era. Like I
Oh
like
yeah.
players from every season that has played, but this season I think is my favorite season of the new era, and possibly my favorite season of like the last maybe 10 or so, excluding Winners at War.
This one is definitely validating, I feel like, for the show in general, and like a lot of fans of like, hey,
Yeah.
like we've both had enough time to get over, to just adjust
Yep.
mentally to like, this is a new thing and different thing, and it is what it is, and we have to be willing to accept what's the best this version can offer, this different version. But is at the same time as we're 5 in and getting a little more comfortable and used to it, we also then get smacked in the face with definitively, I think, the best one for
Yeah.
sure. Like the casts have been really good. The casting department has been doing an amazing job. And as much as this one, maybe I want to hold it a little against it that multiple people quit, but thankfully those were first and fourth or whatever of the season.
Yeah.
And so it kind of made it compelling and interesting to talk about and be upset about, but still like compelled. And it wasn't like, it would have been different if Sean was like here in the final 8 and quit and made like ruined one of the last handful of
Right.
episodes. So yeah, best season of the modern era for sure. I can't say how far back because unlike you, I'm born again. So around Winners at Wartime. So can't say what season was Michelle Fitzgerald on.
Co-wrong and
36,
Winners at War.
30 is that 35, 36, something like
I'm
that.
bad with I'm bad with numbers because they started using, like, they used to use names and now they use numbers, and it's really confusing.
It was somewhere in the mid 30s, I think, is her season, right? Somewhere around there.
Something like that, yeah, because
the season with her and the season with Jay and Michaela,
Millennials versus
I like
Gen
those
Xers.
a lot. So whenever those were, it's the best since that one, says me, who's only seen 2/3 of those seasons I'm referencing.
I'm pretty sure Millennials versus Gen Xers was 33, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And 35 was, I want to say, Heroes, Healers, Hustlers.
I've had to type it down a couple times for their resumes for challenge, but that's neither here nor there. It's an amazing season. It's been super fun podcasting about it, and we'll be back to do so next week. So until then, everyone have a great rest of your weekend and week, and we will talk to you later.